am a productivity.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's right. We did say we were going to do that. Okay, let's start over. Thank you so much for being here. We wanted to record it today because there's a group of people that weren't able to make it, and we promised them a great recording. So, again, Gina Ferrer with Keller Williams Legacy here in Canton, Ohio. I'm loving to see our PC group growing. We kind of just started to collide on social media, and then I created my Facebook group that you guys joined, and we were lucky enough, some of us, to meet in Vegas during family reunion, and I thought I'd keep that momentum going, and we would do another Zoom as I had promised about 6 weeks ago. And I was talking to my coach Jake, so I'm going to introduce Jake here. He is my fantastic coach, and I love how he designed his business, and I thought I would share that with you all by doing a interview with him so that we can all learn from all the fantastic things. So Jake, I will let you tell them, where you're at and how long you've been coaching and all that good stuff that made your market center $1 million in company dollar consecutively for a few years. So that's why
Yeah,
we're all here.
that you bet. Yeah, I'm here 100% as a servant to pour into you all, and just share as much as I can that hopefully will help you, because I know when I was a productivity coach, that was one of the most beneficial things as well, is just learning from other PCs and what they're doing, and quite frankly, what not to do. So I do have the pleasure of coaching and working with Gina, and she was already very successful as a productivity coach. I think, Gina, at the time when you and I first met, you'd been in it for 6 years, and you rattled off all the numbers and successes you've had. I'm like, dang, do you really need me? But listen, if we're going to
Well,
preach
so the
coaching,
answer is yes,
well,
yes,
right.
right? We all
But
do. We all do.
shouldn't every coach also have a coach? We're got to drink the same Kool-Aid we're asking others to do.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, we've been running together now for, I'm not sure how long, but closing in on a year, probably ish.
Yep.
And just think the world of Gina. What a great leader. I was so proud and excited to see what you organized there at Family Reunion. Many faces here that were at that, and just very proud to be here. And like I said, share whatever I can share. I'm an open book. So, looking forward to the interview.
Awesome. Well, I'm just going to start going through a list of questions that I came up with that I remember thinking, I want to know how you're doing it and how you did it.
Yeah.
And I figured that in between there, if you guys have some questions too, please feel free to interject. So I started right from the beginning with my first question, which is, when you became a PC, did you inherit the program or did you create it from the ground up?
Great question. And actually, if we can get some participation in the chat, you tell me first, all of you. Did you inherit the
Love it.
program, write inherit? Or if you started it from scratch, just write scratch. I'd love to get a sense there as well, if that's okay. But to answer your question, yes, scratch, yep, inherited, all sorts of answers. But for me, if it's okay, I'll give a little backstory first, not to bore you to death, but all of this matters. So my backstory is, yes, I was a team leader for Keller Williams. I was a TL for 3 years. Started in the Quad City Market Center on the fringe of Iowa, Illinois. And then I got an opportunity to move my family down to North Carolina to be a TL at the time in Cary, which was a top 20 market center in the world, very profitable, and saw that as a big jump. From there, after being a team leader, I started to get the itch, and I knew that coaching, and specifically productivity coaching, was my jam. And I mean this with all due respect, but it didn't feel good in my situation where I was recruiting 15, 20 plus people a month. And I knew full well that we were lacking the system on the back end to get that person into production and deliver on our promises. So rather than being a part of the problem, I started to be a part of the solution and said, you know what? I want to be a productivity coach. Fast forward, my market center didn't offer me or whatever the role. So I moved my family again to Fort Mill, South Carolina. And Fort Mill has been a very profitable branch or a franchise with Keller Williams for quite some time. I did not inherit anything, is the finally getting to your question. I didn't inherit anything, but here's a key component to this. Has anybody here, raise your hand if you've attended ESO, Expansion Systems Orientation? Yep. So I was in ESO and I had this vision as I was leaving the team leader role to taking on the productivity coaching role, that it was kind of the wild, wild west. And I have a lot of respect for maps. And at the time, though, they gave you this big old game book and said, here's the key to success as a productivity coach. Combining that with the fact that I talked to 62, specifically 62 PCs across the country, and I swear to God, I learned 61 ways I knew I didn't want to run my PC program. Just saying. Okay. I see some heads nodding. You know what I'm talking about. So this office in Fort Mill, although very successful, never had a PC program before. So I'm going in, leaving stability, team leader world, into no stability and starting something from nothing. Woohoo, let's go. I had $2,000 a month for my first 3 months as a stipend. I had to pay 50% of my MAPS coach as long as I hit goals. I spent those first 30 days recruiting from within, doing information sessions every single week, calling agents on that top-down report, and I met one-on-one with nearly 70 agents to get to just to get to know them. Just to get to know them, right? So fast forward, I started day 31 with 62 people in my program, and we were off to the races. And I fast forward, and I'll finally shut up after this. We finished the first year. We created 24 cappers my very first year.
Good job.
The agents did $3.6 million of agent earned GCI. That was 523 closings for $124 million of volume. And yes, over $1 million of squeaky clean company dollar in our first year. And we replicated that ever since. So that's kind of in a nutshell my journey and that success from going basically from inheriting nothing but seeing a vision and what could be and just steadfast, head down, recruiting from within, and then eventually growing it outwardly from there, where at any given time we had about 95 to 105 agents in the program.
And that was one of my questions. So obviously you were full-time. You weren't part-time.
I was full time. Yeah, like I said, I moved my family from North Carolina to South Carolina, no guarantees, $2,000 a month for the first 3 months, and that was it. So literally, it was my one thing. I went all in, go big or go home kind of mindset. But I had the team leader experience, knew MREA and things like that very well. That I'm like, if Gary's right, and he's usually right, I'm going to enter this thing with the mindset of a CEO and play all in as if I have nothing to lose, even though I had a lot to lose. So, yeah, full
Would
time.
you guys all go in the chat and say if you're full or part-time as a PC? Jake, did you sell houses too? And I'd love to hear if everyone sells still.
Nope. In fact, for anybody who might battle like I did with imposter syndrome, I think this is something important, and it's just my story doesn't make me special. How many homes do you think I've sold in my life? Anybody want to take a guess? Chris is like, I mean, you gotta give me some credit. No, I'm playing, dude. You're close. You're close. I've sold one home in my life. So for the idiots out there in Facebook land who like to dog on us coaches saying, well, if you can't do it, you teach it. Yeah, shove it. Because it's not because I sucked at selling. It's because I sold my first home very quickly that my OP called me and say, hey, I want to interview you for a team leader role. So I went down a leadership path instead of a sales path. So a little self-deprecating humor. And yet, how is it that person who sold one home can generate a PC program of everybody else who has massive success? Well, you know the answer. What's Gary Keller preach? Systems, models, scalability, duplication. I was just smart enough to listen to what they said in the room at places like ESO, and I applied the models and filtered it through what Gary taught agents of how I could be a millionaire PC. That's it. That's all I did.
I love that. So when you started, you said you got up to 62 agents, I think you said.
In the
That was
first
in the
30
first
days. Yep.
year. Oh, first 30 days.
Yep.
First 30 days. And then of those people, and as you were growing up to the 90 something, how many of them were full-time and how many of them were part-time slash dual career? Because I know there's always a lot of conversation among PCs,
Yeah.
including myself, that struggle with dual career people, and not just because they're dual career, but because they're dual career and disengaged.
Correct. Yes. So to answer that, I would say at any given time, it's a moving target, right? I would say at any given time, though, and I tracked my business very, very specifically, had about 60% or give or take 60% who were dual career And then obviously about 40%, give or take, that were considered full-time, meaning they didn't have a job. Okay.
Right, right.
And our market center could do it, full transparency. When I started there, we had about 300 agents or so in that market center. And when I left, they had about 450. So it was a bigger office. And I share that because we also took the stance that we didn't, and I'm rocking the air quotes, we didn't have to hire dual careers. We could make it more of a selection process that even if they were dual career, we had them on a 90-day or maybe even upwards of a 6-month transition plan to get full time, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
as you already alluded to it, just quick note, by definition, yes, full time, part time, dual career, but I learned not to label, not to judge either, because I think y'all would probably agree many of the part time dual career agents would run laps around some of these full-time agents who have all the time in the world. So do not discount them, but I also know that that does come with different expectations of availability. But I'm just curious, how many of you started part-time in real estate? Think whenever that was. Did you start full-time or part-time? Full,
I think I was always full.
full-time, part-time. Yeah, I just did this in a room. I spoke last week at a real estate conference in Kentucky, and it was 50-50. Half the room, hands went up, and these were all broker owners. And I'm like, exactly. If somebody had written you off just because they assigned a label to you as, oh, a part-time agent, here we go again. That's part of a lot of our stories, you know? So just be careful.
My part of my struggle with part-time, I guess, and what I meant, I guess, too, and I could have been more clear, is that we're providing our training during a time that the group of people that are full-time and fully engaged can come
Right.
versus doing training. So I guess that'll lead me into my next question then, which is a little out of order here, but since we're talking about it, how did you do your structure of trainings and how did you accommodate for dual career people that maybe had a job where they couldn't come to things in the evening,
Mhm.
or couldn't come to things in the day, they had to come in the evening or a weekend? And did you accommodate that for them? And then did they come?
Great question. Sorry, I'm just letting somebody else in here. There we go. So, excellent question. So, I think you're asking what was my basic structure of the program? Let's zoom out 30,000 feet. Is that
Yep,
right? Okay.
yep.
So, here's what that looked like for me. Not saying it's right or wrong. Okay. So, let's start with one-on-ones. I took a stance because remember, I talked to 62 PCs, learning 61 ways I didn't want to do it. Swim against the current, not with it, because I don't want to be like everybody else. What I'm about to share stands out. Maybe it doesn't anymore, but it did back then, and that is this. I talked to so many PCs who made agents earn a one-on-one. They had to like do certain production or jump through a hoop or so. And I fundamentally just disagreed with that philosophy. What makes me so special? You know, I'm a freaking coach. If I'm not coaching, what am I doing? And so I flipped that model on its head. I said, no, 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 no. By default, every agent in my program gets two 30-minute one-on-one sessions per month. They don't have to earn it. That's by default. But the trick is they can also unearn it. And here's how somebody could unearn a one-on-one with me. But it drove me nuts thinking that my time is so precious against anybody else's that, and to each their own. So one-on-ones, every single agent had two 30-minute one-on-ones with me per month. We did weekly group coaching slash workshops every single week. We had Monday, Wednesday, Friday script practice slash power hour in the mornings. And eventually I ended up calling that help because script has a weird connotation with people. This is the stupid stuff we have to do, leaders. Help. Highly effective language practice. I mean, this is the kind of crap we have to do. So, God forbid I call it
I
script
knew
and
it
role
stood for
play.
something. I knew it had
Yeah,
to stand for something.
no. Highly effective language practice, which then led right into Power Hour. Okay. And then I did book clubs maybe every quarter, like a book club, just as a something little special one-off deal. And then finally, if you want to count this, I had monthly productivity coaching information sessions. Call it something better, but basically an open house for the PC program. Come learn, come check me out. Let me go through my spiel of what we do and how we can help. I had that as a repeating, occurring event on the calendar at all times because I saw that as my listing appointment. Okay.
So
And the
that was
last
for your
thing,
agents in your program, or that was as a recruiting event?
recruiting
Got
event
it.
to the PC program.
Yeah.
So that can mean agents already at the office want to come check it out. And it could mean agents not with Keller Williams yet could too. So that was it. So one-on-ones, group, we got the rhythm there. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, script and role play. Quarterly book clubs and something just a little different like that. And then scheduled information sessions. That was treated kind of like my listing appointment, if you will. That was it.
Got it.
The heavy
What did
lifting
you
was done in the
use?
one-on-ones, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah. What did you use for recruiting tools? So, like, where did you get I get this question a lot. Where did you get the list of people to recruit? Like,
Hmm.
where did that come from?
Okay, great question. Starting internal, I do believe strongly that we should always be re-recruiting our own agents. So I was always paying attention to the top-down report. I can't remember the name of it, but it was something, maybe an ad hoc report where it's like if somebody haven't had a closing for 90 days, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I'm all
Yes.
over that. I'm all over that one because they're probably hurting in some form or fashion, and I don't mean to like be a prey on that, but you get what I'm saying. They probably need some help. I used Broker Metrics. I know that has evolved. There's other programs and platforms, but Broker Metrics is still a thing. And I got very, very, very good at studying the game and learning lore, the language of real estate. I would do, swear to God, I recruited, this wasn't to the PC program, kind of an aside, but you'll get the point. I recruited two mega agents in the same week, which is equivalent to $85 million of volume between two mega agent teams, 1 week. By using broker metrics and LOI, lost opportunity income, I swear to God, what I did was I took their rolling 12 months and all the reports and data that broker metrics can give you. I printed that out, attached a handwritten note just in my chicken scratch, and showed them my mathematical calculation of saying, hey, in the last 12 months, you've closed 35 buy sides and 20 sell sides. If we could get that sell side up to 50-50, like Gary Keller says, here's what that gap, that lost opportunity income would be. Do you want to get together over coffee and talk about this? And I'm kind of paraphrasing. Both of them called me in the same week. And coincidentally, about a month or so later, after I had to woo them a little bit further, they both joined Keller Williams. So I'm saying the broker metrics and other language of real estate tools available to you are great recruiting sources. But of course, I created other things myself. You guys might have a recruiting brochure. I created a passport to success that I could show agents the path of getting them into production quickly. I created a class that we still do to this very day. Gina, you're familiar with it, the 19 things they don't teach you in real estate school. I taught that on the first Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. 19 things they don't teach you in real estate school. And then the following Tuesday at 6 p.m. is when I had my career night. So guess what? Anybody who attended my first thing was getting an invite to the next thing. And if they attended, 100% slam dunk, they're joining Keller Williams. And last, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but
No, it's
resources
great.
you said for recruiting, guys, if you just get good at goal setting calculator, like goal setting exercises, taking what they want, chunking it down to the granular, that's an amazing recruiting appointment. Gap analysis calculators, all these different tools that are available to you. Odds are their own broker is not talking to them that way. They probably don't have a coach. And especially if they're brand new to the business, they have no freaking idea where to start. We're barking at them to go set goals. Well, most people, I'm sorry, don't know how to effectively set goals. We literally have to teach people how to set a goal and then assign a meaning to that goal so they're not just grabbing some arbitrary number from thin air. But if you're finding yourself frustrated of like, oh, this person doesn't have goals, No wonder they're not doing anything. Well, where's your DNA in that? Are you helping them even know how to effectively set goals? Sorry, I'm getting on a rant. Stop me.
No, I love it. Do you think this, because when I'm hearing you say all this, which is all great, my TL does a lot of that,
Hmm.
and I handle a lot of the newbies or in
Yeah,
school. So I'd love to know, like, do you think because you had the TL experience, you incorporated that into your productivity coaching program? Like,
100%.
what did your
Yeah.
TL do? That's what I
Yeah.
want to know.
She
What did
recruited,
your TL do?
she's still, some of you might know her, Shelby Ryburn. She's out in California. If you know Shelby Ryburn, she was my TL. Yeah, she was rocking it, man. Shelby's great people. She's still obviously with KW doing her thing. So she was largely focused on the producing agents, as most TLs are supposed to be. And so I would generally handle the rest. And we just made a great team. We divide and conquered that, which is why I did very high leveraged activities for recruiting, 19 things, career nights. I even did group interviews for new agents because I need to maximize 1 hour of my life. I can't be like Shelby because I left that role meeting one-on-one with an agent every single hour of the day. That wasn't my game anymore. 80% of my time needed to be spent coaching because that was my highest and best use to make money. Okay. I mean, 20% of my time would be recruiting or doing the other housekeeping stuff. And I made that abundantly clear to her saying, I love you, but I'm leaving the team leader role for a reason. So you're not going to make me a glorified unpaid ATL here.
All right.
I'm a productivity coach. I need to be coaching people. My livelihood depends on that. So, will I recruit? Yes, because I see this as my business. I need to bring in new revenue and people to my business. But I'm not going to recruit, no offense to anybody, because there's this top-down pressure or expectation. You reading between the lines of what I'm saying here a little bit.
Quotas of appointments. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not doing the 2-10-40 anymore, man. I don't need to be part of that growth initiative thing that John Davis was pushing at the time. Like I want to help agents. That's what I want to do. But I'm going to recruit only because I know that's what a responsible business owner would do, not because you tell me I have to. So there's that.
Awesome. So when did you decide, how many agents did you have in the program before you decided you needed your first launch coach or
Hmm,
assistant coach or whatever you labeled them? I
great
know when
question.
I hit 80 agents, I was like, I now feel like I need some help. And
Yeah.
and then what I did was I put down my entire job description and I pulled out the things that I felt someone else could do for me, which ended up being 10%.
Mhm.
And so when I hired her, I gave her 10% of my cut
Yeah.
because I thought it was equivalent to 10% of what she was doing. So when did you decide and how did that look?
Really good question. At the time, I don't know even who made up the word, but and maybe it's still going around. Launch coach. Launch coach was the big thing. Again, I didn't believe in that. I thought it was stupid because, no offense, at the time, most launch coaches by that label could only coach somebody from like 0 to 4 transactions or 0 to 6 transactions or something. I'm like, no, man, I don't want to stunt somebody's opportunity. So they get to do all the hard part and then I get them from there. I didn't like it. So I made them assistant coaches. I called them assistant coaches and they had every right to coach somebody from 0 to cap just like me. The only difference was MREA. I treated them kind of like a buyer's agent model. You're an assistant coach of my coaching program. You're not a launch coach. Therefore, you get 60% of the money generated from the sale. I keep 40%. Just like a team. Just like a team. And so you asked when. When did I know? Keep in mind I was full time. With all due respect, I was full time, not selling or doing anything else. So I decided to remove emotion from the equation. I looked at it logically with math. I hired my first assistant coach when I had 60 personal clients, but listen, check it out, who were engaging. That's big numbers. Not to be confused with 60 people on my PC roster. Get me? Why? Here's how I came up with that number. I told you before. So at 60 people, what did I say before? Every person in the program by default gets two 30-minute one-on-ones. Yes, every month. So 60 times 2 is 120. 120 one-on-ones. That was my capacity. How'd you get there? Well, let's reverse engineer. 120 one-on-ones divided by 20 working days. Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, 4 weeks. 20 working days, right? That's 6 a day. 6 a day. Well, 6 a day at 30 minutes each is 3 hours of actual coaching time. So usually, here's what I did. I did 3 in a row. I took a break, went to the restroom, do whatever I need to do, reset. And then I did 3 more in a row, and I was done. Left me plenty of time to recruit, follow up, do whatever I needed to do, train in my 8-hour workday. So I knew when I got to that capacity, 60 engaged people showing up for their one-on-ones, that was good for me. And so that's where I hired my first assistant coach. His name was Len, and he carried about 20. And then I brought in Debbie later, who carried 10 to 15 at any given time.
So then what I'm hearing you say is each person had their own group
Yep.
of, okay. So
Yep.
did you ever cross over?
Crossover, what do you mean? How?
Helping each other with their people, or you had your group, they had their group?
Uh, for the most part, we talked about them. We had our coaches meeting every Monday morning, and I had a rhythm to that coach meeting because it's still my job to make sure the agents are getting the value and performing. But we would get together and talk about our respective agents. But no, as far as the coaching is concerned, they handled the one-on-ones.
Right.
All of them still congregated into the same weekly group coaching
Yes.
session. So we're
Got
still
it.
mixing in, but the one-on-one was you can't scale your time to a certain degree. That's where I needed other coaches to help with. But the groups and stuff, who no, we all came together for that.
Question. Go ahead, Stephanie, and unmute yourself.
Sorry, it wasn't unmuting.
Okay.
Hi, Jake. What you're saying really speaks to me. It sounds like we're disruptors in a very nice way. And I absolutely love that because we do create our own path, and we see what works for our area as well, right?
Yeah.
I heard that you unearn a one-on-one spot. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that looks like?
Very good. Yes, this will lead into another topic probably, but so I had part of my passport to success. In other words, when I met with an agent for the first time, I would go through certain pages of the contents of this document called the passport to success. Part of what was in there was here's what I do as a coach, here's what I don't do as a coach, and we can get into that if you guys want. And here are the expectations that I have of you, and it's always equal and opposite. Here are the expectations you can have of me. So just like KW teaches in the hiring process, the CV process, right? At some point, you're going to get to a thing called the expectations dialogue. All of you have gone through it probably. Why wouldn't I do that with an agent? How do I win with you? How do I lose with you? Here's what I do. Here's what I don't do. Here's what I expect of you. Here's what you can expect of me. You get it? I'm flushing all this out day one. I'm setting the tone day one. And guess what? They initialed it and I initialed it. It's kind of like my HR file. So if 6 months down the road, I need to bust that bad boy out and say, no, no, remember we talked about this. Here's your signature, that I could do that. So here's a talking point for all of you. This might be like your takeaway of the day. I'm not sure. I tracked a lot of the KPIs and results over this 3-year span of time when I was a PC. Check this out. I knew that the agents who are actively engaged, underscore actively engaged, earned 255% more in GCI than those in the program that were not actively engaging. Poof, lore, language of real estate, numbers, numbers, numbers. Use numbers to tell your story. I use that internally, and you better bet your butt I used that when I was recruiting too. The coaching program works. The question is, are you willing to work? Are you coachable? 255%. So I share that with you because Your next logical question as coaches, because you live in curiosity, should be, well, Jake, what's engage mean? Great question. Here's how I defined engage. 3 things. Number 1, did they consistently show up for their one-on-one with me? Number 2, did they attend at least 75% of the group coaching sessions each month? And number 3, did they consistently report their numbers to me every week? I had a reporting system. That's it. I got my blindfold on, and I would go through my roster and highlight green if that person was engaged versus not. And I'll be damned. You add up the GCI, the units, and all the things, 255%. Luck would have it. So I'm finally getting to your answer. They could unearn a one-on-one with me if they have a pattern of behavior, kind of like a 3-strike you're out rule. I use a lot of baseball analogies. They haven't been reporting their numbers. Strike. You just forfeited your one-on-one, your next one-on-one with me. If you're late or no show, I'm very Gina knows. I don't like that. Don't waste my time. And number 3, I did require my coaching clients to submit a coaching prep form to me 24 hours in advance. If you did not submit your coaching prep form to me, that was also grounds for forfeiting your one-on-one with me. Does that help?
Thank you so much for that clarity. I appreciate it. That
You are
helps
very
a lot.
welcome. Yeah, you're very welcome.
Hey, I
And
have a
listen,
question. Was that
that was
prep
all
form the
set up
same as
front.
the one we have? I have a prep form every time I meet with you. Is it similar to
Uh,
that?
Slightly different. It's
Okay,
very slightly different, Gina,
great
but
idea.
you're right. That's important. You have to
Yeah,
report to me, or not report to me, but like you have to submit to me your prep form between now and tomorrow when we coach together.
yeah.
Why, by the way, you guys tell me, why would I do that? What would be the benefits of asking your agents to do that and holding that as a standard?
To determine the coaching questions that you could put together to be able to determine where they actually lie.
Yeah.
It
Heck
also
yeah.
puts a level of accountability.
Mhm.
Because I know for me, if I've got to report to someone else, I'm more likely to actually do what I need to do than if it was just not having to report it.
Damn right. What's the switch cost? What happens? And all of you have probably been in this situation. What if they don't? Well, they just show up at your door. I'm here for our coaching session. What ends up
They're,
happening?
they're,
Reschedule.
they're usually a little scattered.
Yeah. And or they don't even know. Like, what do you want to talk about today? We waste 15 minutes just trying to figure out what the heck you want. You want to get out of our time together. If you guys ever go through any sort of formal coach training like the ICF or anything like that, you'll know what coaching is versus isn't. A lot of people, not saying you, a lot of people who claim they're coaches are really just professional advice givers. They do too much talking. Coaching, I hope you know, is the skill, the art of asking great questions, leading towards self-discovery, accountability, things in that range. One of the ICF core standards, the International Coaching Federation, is that the client owns the outcome. The client is responsible for bringing what they want to get out of today's time with you. So if they don't know that in advance, that's why you're scrambling. You feel like you've got to entertain them. If you feel exhausted because you feel like you've got to come up with the topic of the day. My MAPS coach at the time, Michelle Anderson, many of you probably know of Michelle. She was coaching me back then. I remember in my first 6 months having a call with Michelle. I'll never forget it. And I told her, Michelle, I'm exhausted. And she just buttered me up. She's like, oh, so tell me more about that, Jake. Like, so I did my thing. She's like, yeah, okay, interesting. Well, tell you what, you shouldn't be exhausted after a full day of coaching. In fact, you should have energy. I'm like, all right, what trap did I just fall into? And she proceeded to say this, and I'll never forget it. She said, Jake, you know the 80-20 rule? I'm like, yeah. She said, I would venture to say you're so exhausted because you're probably talking 80% of the time. In fact, you should only be talking 20% of the time and listening 80% of the time. And the 20% of the time that you are talking, you should be asking questions. So if any of you are exhausted or drained after coaching, check yourself. Are you doing all the talking? Or is the client being forced to do all the talking because you're skilled at asking great questions? That was a big transformative moment for me early on.
That's eye-opening.
Yeah.
Especially for those of us that are chatty Cathys, meaning me.
Yep. The
For
person who's
sure.
doing the most questions is what? In control of the conversation. The one who's doing the most talking is what? They're doing the most bonding.
Mhm. So
Sometimes we
that
just
leads to my
gotta,
accountability question then. So I love that that we led this path because I know that a question I always have, and when I talk to other PCs, we always have is these agents, they don't work for us. We're not a rainmaker. Um, they are independent contractors who really hired us. So if anything, we work for them. They don't work for us.
yeah.
So I'm always struggling, and I'm talking to my OP about this all the time. How do I get people that I work for to hold themselves accountable to me?
Got it. So translation, how do we keep them engaged at a high level?
Well, how do we get them to be engaged, track, and
Mhm.
report back? Like, what kind of, I would also love to know, what is your tracker? What are the questions on your tracker? What are you using for that? Other than they might lose a one-on-one, how do you reach back out and say, I'll never forget the one day a few years ago when I reached out to someone and I just said, "Hey Jake, it's Gina, just checking in. Haven't seen you or heard from you in a while. Just wanted to see if everything's going okay." And what they responded to me was, "Oh, I didn't realize that I had to report to you." Rather than saying thank you for checking in, I'm like, I just didn't want you to be on an island here. So it makes you swing this way and then that way. So like, how did you balance that? They're independent contractors and they don't have to listen to me, but then get them to do things like tracking.
That's really where skill set matters. Just like we tell agents today, skill set matters more than ever. You can't just be a door opener. You can't just give the information's right at anybody's fingertip. We're working with a more sophisticated buyer than ever before. And same would be true for agents. We have to up our skill set. So how the short version that unpacks an hour-long training, um, you must get very skilled, as I mentioned, at asking great questions and following coaching models. If you've been to like coaching skills camp or anything, you know GROW and FUEL and other different acronyms for coaching models. I use them like crazy. Why? But it's not just to lead a conversation to get the outcome we want. That's called borderline manipulation. No, it's important to ask questions and run those models because it helps the other person identify and self-discover. I am a parent of two amazing daughters. I love my girls. They are my life. Um, and if I went home tonight and I said, Ava, Addie, go clean your room, what's the knee-jerk response? Right? Yeah, no, rebellion. Who here loves to be told what to do? Like nobody, because that's why you're a 1099. So to your question and or point there, Gina, we don't need to tiptoe around the fact that they're a 1099. I'm not your boss. You're your own boss, but I am your coach. I am your accountability buddy. And if something's changing, you don't want that anymore, I tell them flat out in that first conversation I mentioned earlier, what I do, what I don't do. Part of that was I don't chase people. I can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself. But my responsibility in that is twofold. Number one, grow my skill set so I'm better at asking questions. Because when my daughters respond, hey, I think I should go clean my room, it's their idea, not mine. And when it's somebody else's idea and they're the author of that idea, do they have more ownership and commitment in it? Yes or yes? Of course. It was their idea. I didn't tell them what to do. They self-discovered what to do. Now they own it. And I just lost the other thing that I was going to make a point on. Doesn't matter. But that's how getting really good at that. How do I hold them accountable? Well, it's, number tracking, coaching prep forms, one-on-one rhythms, um, three strike, you're out rule, kind of all the stuff we've talked about. Here's a crunchy thing for you guys that I don't want to forget to say. I setting those expectations, teaching the agents to where I want to win the mind share battle came down to an acronym called MARS, MARSS, MARS. And I had this conversation with every single person that ever joined my program. Said, agent, here's what I do. Here's what I don't do. Let's start with the don't do list. I am not your compliance broker. So we're not going to spend our coaching time with me just going through contracts and answering contract questions. I had the fortunate luxury to do that. If you don't, just tune me out. I'm not your compliance broker. I am not your tech guru. You're not going to come in here hot asking me to show you how to use command. We got a person for that. So I am not, I am not, I am not. All these things. Now let me tell you what I am. I want to dominate your thoughts. I want to haunt you in your dreams. I want you to think of me when you think of these 5 things in this specific order. Mindset, Mars, mindset, activity, results, skill set development, systems and processes. You think of any one of those 5 things, I want you to think of me. That's what I coach to. That's what I'm going to drive behaviorally with you. Mindset, activities, results, skill set development, systems and processes. If it's not any one of those 5, you can come to me, but I'm going to walk you in the office to the appropriate person to handle the tech question, the contract question, whatever. I didn't have any calls after 5 p.m. I did not have calls on the weekends. I swear to God. Because I spent so much time up front setting the standard, setting the expectations.
Wow. Can I ask, what were your cycle of trainings? I know we talked a little bit about, what you did on, for scripting and stuff. So did you, because I'm always finding myself like right now, I'm on the line here to get my April calendar done. They're hounding me for my classes. So like, did you follow a cycle of the same classes that you ran, like a 3-month cycle, or did you randomly build your own calendar? Did your market center do that? How did you come up with the topics? I mean, I know you said you do scripting 3 times a week and that kind of thing, but how did you decide what class topics and where did you get your information for all that?
Yep, really good. Two different places, primarily. Some, let me say 3, because some was forced, because let's be honest, we know the foundation of what they need. Database, lead gen, some of the typical stuff, right? So let's put that aside. The other 2 places, though, I sourced information from to create my training calendar with was number 1, the numbers. And I had numbers. I had numbers on every agent, and that rolled up into a master dashboard where I had numbers to see the program at large. Okay. If I study the numbers and I know how to interpret the numbers, it tells me a story. I can see, ooh, we're doing the activities. We just went on 117 listing appointments this month. Wow, they're doing the stuff, but our conversion rate is 40%. So what does that tell me? Next month's training calendar, I might need to have skill set development around listing conversions. That makes sense? So I let the numbers tell me where the gaps or opportunities were for the training calendar. Make sense? The second place I sourced it was, shocker, was, we make this too complicated sometimes, guys, asking the agents. I had a script. I would call the agents and say, hey, agent, hey, Angie, ring, ring. It's Jake, and quick question for you. If there was one training that I could get on the calendar for you in the next 30 days that would be so impactful, so important to you that you would promise me you'd move heaven and earth to be there, what would that training be? And I just shut up and let her answer. And I'm writing that down. And once I have a collection of all these answers, I can categorize. I can say, oh, I had 11 people basically answer about this. Interesting. And then it's my job to go make that happen. And then guess what else happens? Angie gets a call from me and say, Angie, it's Jake. Hey, did you see the training calendar for next month yet? Remember when you told me you wanted X, Y, and Z? Well, check out the 17th. Now you promised me you were going to be there. You'd move heaven and earth to be there. Can I count on you to make it? Close the feedback loop.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it was
I want
very
to open it up for
intentional.
other questions too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have one more question and I'll open it up for everybody else. What does your tracker look like? What
Oh,
questions were you asking?
oh my Lord, I should pull it up. I didn't have it queued up. Um, we had a pretty badass thing that we built. Now there's Sisu and all these other things, but we just
Sure.
created a Google tracking sheet that you wouldn't believe. Some of you know of CTE and other program, like imagine that, but for a PC program, it was so bad to the bone. And so we had vital signs reports and all these dashboards and different mechanisms. So basic stuff though, guys, if it's too long, they're not going to do it. You need the basic stuff. Go back to the 4 conversations. How many people have you talked to? How many appointments have you set? How many appointments did you hold? You could add that in there if you wanted to. How many new pieces of business did you acquire from those appointments? And then number of closings. I mean, keep it like, I don't say superficial, that would be the wrong word, but keep it basic. Because even if I just know that, now I can play doctor if I had all that collection of just those 4 or 5 points alone. Okay. And I can look at that and say, well, as they teach in medical school, I believe, that prescription without proper diagnosis is malpractice. I do not want to do malpractice as a real estate coach, a real estate doctor. So I'm going to let the data, just like my mom and dad know that they have high blood pressure, and therefore they need to take that pill every morning to keep that high blood pressure in check. That lets them know if their physical body is healthy or sick. As your coach, as your doctor in real estate, I need to know if your business is healthy or sick. I'm not going to do that based on your feeling or emotion of the day. That's up and down, up and down, up and down. The only way I can do that is if you consistently report the numbers into me and let me do what I do best and interpret that information. So when you paint it as a benefit to them, not report your numbers or else, you tend to get more response, and then you find a few key people out of that. Ryan and Heather Bigger, Gina, you know their story a little bit. They were one of my first coaching clients ever as a PC. Quick story, Ryan was a U.S. foods truck driver. Heather, his wife, was a stay-at-home mom with their 3 kids. He was making 60 grand a year as a U.S. foods truck driver, got laid off from his job because he injured his shoulder. So he's on short-term disability, getting fractions of paycheck, goes back to work 9 months later and gets laid off the same day. Done. No income. Fast forward, they're living on food stamps. One friend, he's applying to jobs. Nobody wants to hire a truck driver for the jobs he was applying for. One friend of theirs said, you've helped us buy a couple investment properties. Have you ever considered a career in real estate? Hello. They both borrowed $500 to get the pre-license class completed from her parents. Their first year with me, guys, I still get goosebumps talking about this. Their first year with me, they closed 32 homes for 10 million in volume, $300,000 of GCI, 5 times what Ryan ever made as a U.S. food truck driver in their first year of real estate. Life has complete. Now they're investing and they're killing it. But I'll never forget, because of the tracking and the numbers that I was tracking, their first 3 months, they started in September, October, November, 0, 0, 0 closings. Had nothing to show for it. But guess what? Every week I produced a scorecard, like a social media scorecard showing the top people and the tracking categories and just giving recognition. They led the scorecards every single month or every single week. And I remember sitting down with them, tears in both of our eyes, because they were saying, Jake, we can't we got to get out of real estate. Because what's due? Board dues. End of year board, they got to pay their dues again. Didn't have the money. And I remember looking at them and saying, Ryan, Heather, look me in the eye and tell me if all of these leading indicators that you have reported into me, Scout's honor, are the honest God's truth? Yes or no? I said, yeah, we're just doing what you tell us to do. We're playing, we're all in, but we haven't had a closing. We need money. I said, Ryan, Heather, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't promise you, but you got to figure this the F out because you are close. I know in business it takes 90 days to create or lose momentum, and you are right there at the 90-day mark. Figure it out. Go beg, borrow, steal money to stay in the game just a little bit longer. And guys, I cannot make this stuff up. January, closing. February, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 3. Finish their first year with 30, whatever it was, closings. And guess what? We knew because we track numbers. Tell your agents this, guys. Use my information to go tell it. For Ryan and Heather, 1 year in, we knew that for every what was it? For every 29 conversations, no, 28. For every 28 conversations, they got an appointment. We knew for every 48 conversations, they got a new piece of business. And because we knew their average sales price was 200,000, therefore at the time, 3%, about 6,000 GCI, check this out. We took $6,000 average GCI, divided it by 48, because we just said for every 48 conversations, it led to one new piece of business. Yeah. You know what that is? 125. What does that number represent? The average value of a freaking contact was 125 bucks. You go talk to 10 people today like Ignite tells you to do, congratulations, you just made 1,250 bucks. Problem is it hasn't shown up in your bank account yet. But it cemented the fact that I am making money. I'm doing the right thing. And if that's what it takes to play that mind game, fine. And then Will Anderson, he was another agent in my program, heard me share this at a group coaching session one day. And I swear to God, I didn't know it at the time. He left that group coaching session to go to Wells Fargo up the street. He took out $1,000 cash in the form of $100 bills. And I later learned he would sit at his cube in the office with a stack of money, and every person he talked to, he would slide himself a $100 bill. Like, I can't make this kind of stuff up. But those are the stories. Who is your Ryan and Heather bigger? They were on stage at Mega Camp, at regional events in the Carolinas region. They were in Outfront magazine that KW produced. Like they were the bomb. Sharing that story. Who can you create a story from within your program? It takes one to say, look what they did. Do you want to be like that? I totally just took that over, Gina. I'm sorry.
No, I wanted you to. That was amazing. I know we're almost out of time, but I want people to be able to ask any questions that they might have.
I could stay on a few minutes if anybody needs to go over a little bit.
Anybody have any questions? That was amazing though. I already know a lot of this stuff, but I've got like tons of notes here too.
I feel like I talked way too much, and I apologize, guys.
No,
It is
no,
fun
that
for
was
me to
amazing.
get some of this stuff out. So
Yeah. Go ahead with your question. Yeah. Oh,
Hi, sorry. It wasn't me.
nope. Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Sorry, I don't want to ask all the questions, but I definitely am interested in your 19 things they don't teach you in real estate class.
Yep.
Would that be something you'd be open to sharing with us?
We can I'll connect you with Gina on that, and we'll figure out, Gina, what we can supply them to have that.
Yeah, I created a flyer
Okay.
and I put it in. You're in the Facebook group, right?
I am,
you are.
yes.
Yeah, I think I don't know when it was, but I put a flyer in there. I just created each of the 19. I can send it to you too because I went ahead and broke that down.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
it's hard because we have that as a digital course that people can watch and go through for each of the 19 things in our LMS platform. But
Gotcha.
so we'll figure that out internally. But at a minimum, yeah, she can give you like what are the 19 things. We have a PowerPoint slide deck that goes with it. Like it's just, and y'all, It's the same stuff. It's just marketing. It's just how you
Good
package it.
though, because I did career night last night here and I just pulled seven of them.
Yeah.
And so I called it the seven things I didn't
Yeah.
teach you as a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
And because I wanted to have enough time to go over a handful of them and then still go over KW stuff. So we had a career night last night and I pulled that information from there. That's why I have it top of mind because I had just done that.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Deb?
Go ahead, Deb. Sorry.
So looking at brand new agents, Jake,
Mhm.
did you use a 30, 60, 90? And if so, what did the tracking of those activities look like?
Mhm. Yes, I did, and I actually extended it to what we do now. We have a break. We call it a breakthrough path one, where it's this kind of like a yellow brick road. Okay, it's specific courses that I have hand selected in a very specific order, and you cannot get to the next course until you complete this one to unlock it, if that makes sense. So it's
Right.
kind of like a extended 30, 60, 90. That's really like a 6 to 9 month version of a 60, 30, 60, 90. But I did back then. I'd have to dig that up to remember exactly what I had on it, but I can tell you it wasn't by day 7, get your copy code. That's where the bathroom is. Like, no, it was productivity specific stuff. I always had a book that I wanted them to read. Like, by the end of this month, I want you to have read the one thing. By the end of month 2, I want you to have read MREA. By the end of the third month, I want you to have read Shift, you know. Because I believe deeply in personal growth. But the tracking of it was always activity based. So even though I might have assigned them, go shadow 2 agents on a listing appointment, that was like a yes, no checkbox.
Right,
But
right,
the real stuff goes back to how many people did you talk to? How many appointments did you hold? How many new pieces of business did you get? Did you have a closing? That, like, I kept the core things that they were tracking religiously to me on top of the activities or challenges that I issued them that made the greater version of a 30, 60, 90.
right.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a complete answer, but hopefully that helped you a little bit. Yeah.
So, but to follow up,
Okay.
so a lot of our new people, for example, are coming in, they're not even joining the board. They're not
Okay.
confident they're going to write something.
Yeah.
And, and I'm teaching workshops where I'm teaching them how to actually go in, create the opportunity, do the paperwork. And some of them are showing up, but they don't even have access to the forms. How are you managing that?
I didn't
I'll
have
step
that
in on that
problem.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
our Dofi takes care of the onboarding, and that's part of the onboarding process that our other leadership takes care of. By the time I get them into coaching, they've done those things. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm usually meeting with them either before they've come or right at around the same time, possibly in the same day as their onboarding. But that's taken care of in their KW packet of or onboarding, getting your email address, getting your website, setting up time for your tech trainer, and it's in the you must do these things. And so usually by the time I get them, it's already been done.
So someone else in your market center took care of that for you.
Because they're
Makes sense.
Yeah.
onboarding them. So they're signing their KW paperwork, they're doing their email. I don't do that. Jake, you weren't
Same.
onboarding.
Same. Yeah. And we have an onboarding checklist spreadsheet we can send you if you, but we had
Oh,
that.
I've got the sheet. It's
Okay.
just I don't have the leverage in
Yeah,
my
you don't have the
office.
manpower. Yeah, I didn't either. I was in Gina's camp. We had director of agent services and other people that handled those responsibilities. And it was always this passing of the baton. So after they did X, Y, and Z, they walked them down or even sat with them and booked them on my calendar, knowing from there I had them for the coaching and getting them
Got
into
it.
production. So it was a very much a machine that worked with everybody owning their own components of it. But if you don't have the manpower or the resources, then yeah, I empathize or
We've
sympathize
got the
rather.
manpower.
Yeah,
We just don't have, in my opinion, the right people in the right
the
seats.
responsibility, yeah, the ownership, and that's a great quote, if you will, is if more than one person owns it, nobody does. Yep. And my coach, recent coach, told me also, sounds so basic, and she got me though. Jake, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. It's so, I don't know where she stole that from, but I'm like, you, because sometimes I can just, if you haven't figured it out, be like, all over the place. But unless somebody slows me down and say, Jake, can you paint that done for me? Or can you just drop like 17 things? Can you help me prioritize what you want done first? I'll just move on. Those of you who are high Ds know what I'm talking about. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Well,
Was
thank
this
you guys
helpful?
so much. This was so awesome.
Awesome. Very good. And kudos to
So
Gina. Thanks for having me. This was fun for me a little
thank
bit. I'm not
you.
gonna lie, but thank you and your leadership. And guys, if you don't know or get to know Gina, she's an incredible resource. She's a hell of a good coach, and she's smart as heck. So I'm really excited to see what's forming here and leaning into each other because you don't have to do this alone.
Love it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. We will have the recording. I was taking notes, but I feel like I'm going to go back and listen to the recording because there's still some things that I feel like I missed. So I will have that available. I'll put information in our group, Facebook group about it, and then we'll get it out to you as well.
And we're doing something next
Oh,
week.
oh, yeah, I was gonna say, let's do our follow-up too. So Jake, tell everybody about the digital conference next week. And then I also
Oh,
wanted to talk about our follow-up to this to get a little bit deeper. That's on March 26th.
you go
So
first.
let
You
me
tell them about
first,
that.
yeah, I'll go first. So Wednesday, March 26th, because I knew there wasn't gonna be enough time to us to really dig in.
No.
And Jake actually has a training. This was kind of just casual get together chat, but he actually has a training course on this topic. So Wednesday, March 26th, 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern on Zoom again. I will put information about it in the group as well, and then we'll get you that link if you'd like to join that. But tell them about your digital conference on Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, that one, by the way, that one's free. We're not here to like do any funny business with you here. But that's how do I earn six figures as a productivity coach? That would kind of be the title of that class that she just referenced. Um, next Tuesday, good Lord, the 18th, we are hosting a digital conference. So if that is of interest to anybody, if you're familiar with Michael Mayer, he's now in the fast track courses of maps and stuff. Michael, author of 7 Levels of Communication, he's going to be one of my speakers. Jonathan Foltz about AI, Nick Sarnicole about the leadership, Ann Carden about personal branding, Jerica Contos from Ops Boss Coaching is going to talk about hyper productivity hacks. I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Sam Karamian about recruiting. I have a jam-packed lineup of big time superstars. Okay. It's $97 for the digital conference. So if that is anything you guys want to be a part of, you can pop in, pop out. If you know you can't make it, but want all the recordings, we're going to give everybody recordings who gets a ticket, but that's happening next Tuesday. So
And I'll drop that. And Jake's in our KW Success Builders Facebook group too, so he can always drop the information in there to sign up as well. One of
all good
us
either
can
way.
do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm excited. And if that's not for you, all good. But we were going to keep delivering value. I know Gina, of course, is, and any role I can play small inside of the group or doing a training like we're doing in a couple of weeks, I'm happy to do it, guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys so much for coming.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jake.
everybody. You're very welcome. See ya.
Bye.
Bye bye.